Hi there, and welcome to Censored But Not Silenced with Rebekah Koffler. Today, I would like to speak with you about socialism and the danger of this evil system to our country, the United States of America. As an immigrant who was born and raised in the former Soviet Union, I detest socialism. And I don't want it for my adopted homeland, the United States of America. Here's what socialism is truly about. I've written an editorial about socialism on the Fox News website, and it's titled USSR 2.0. My adopted US homeland is giving me flashbacks to the Russia I fled. Here's what socialism is really about. Many Americans think that it's just about the free stuff, free healthcare, free education, this and that, especially the young people. They seem to be the ones who are beguiled by this erroneous and false narrative. Socialism is a government control focused system. It's authoritarian, it's dictatorship type, and it's really an oppressive system. Socialism is the first step to communism. And this is what the former Soviet Union, the USSR, was all about, where I was born and raised. I came to the United States in 1989. I've been here for 33 years, and I'm witnessing what is happening to my adopted homeland with fear, because I'm seeing the trends emerging in our country that remind me of the place that I fled. So here's the truth about socialism. And we really saw the epitome of government control during COVID, all these lockdowns and the destruction of small businesses as a result of it. It's the type of government control that the Russian people experienced back in the USSR, and they're actually experiencing it still today. So at the same time, when the people, the regular folks like you and me, regular Americans, were prohibited from going really anywhere, the restaurants couldn't be open, the hair cutters, that's why I actually grew long hair. I used to have short hair. But at the same time, the government officials like Nancy Pelosi and the rest of them would go to French restaurants, would go have a haircut, and these rules that they created did not apply to them. And this is the epitome of it. They think that it's the rules that they have created, it's for us, it's for the rest of us, but they don't have to abide by them. So it's total government control. Back in the Soviet Union, we could not travel. The government, didn't want us to travel because we were not allowed to see what capitalist countries were about. And so the narrative that the Soviet socialist system was the best system and out there, that's how the government perpetuated this myth. And I remember for the first time, when I came to America, and I was taken to a grocery store, and I saw the abundance of food. I was stunned. I didn't think it was real. I thought that somehow my friends staged it. especially what was stunning to me was the sight of apples, those red delicious apples. When I saw them, they looked so glossy and bright and yummy and clean that I couldn't believe it. But the minute that I realized that all that food that was available in a regular grocery store, it was a giant, actually giant grocery store, and I realized that all the myth of the Soviet socialist system being the best system in the world was all a lie, and I began crying. So we weren't allowed to travel. Um, that's one thing, and of course, we weren't allowed to speak our mind. You had to always look over your shoulder to see who was listening, because if you criticize the Soviet socialist system, then you could lose your job, you could be expelled out of school, and that's how the totalitarian regimes, they preserve their power, is because they eliminate the opposing view. They eliminate the plurality of opinion, which is the bedrock of democracy. And what I see happening today in America is the exact same thing. We have censorship, whether it's done by the big tech companies or even by individual um, uh, people and businesses, right? So we know that Facebook and social media, they silence the certain voices, the conservative voices, the religious voices. And for example, when COVID just hit, the legitimate analytic line, and I come, as some of you know, I come from the intelligence community. I served in the DIA, Defense Intelligence Agency, which is a CIA's counterpart, but the military counterpart will support the warfighter and the defense policy. So the analytic line that COVID leaked from a lab was a legitimate analytic line. And in the intelligence community, we're supposed to look at all hypotheses before we arrive at the ground truth, but that was suppressed, right? And so the big tech helped the government suppressing that view. And so eventually all this censorship that we're experiencing right now is going to lead to the party line, right? And we see that already today. If you are someone who disagrees with abortion, with government control, with the whole pronoun business, that if you believe that there are only two genders, men and women, you can be expelled, you can be canceled, right? We know that people who served in the former President Trump's administrations were demonized, and they were not given book deals just because they represented former President Trump, who was actually falsely accused of being the Russian agent and all of that. So that's a very Soviet-esque type of tactic. So that concerns me. And where censorship is leading is self-censorship. So eventually what happens is that people stop speaking truth to power, or even amongst themselves. So if you are one of those MAGA people, or even not a MAGA person, but if you're somebody who voted for Trump or prefers, Trump because to be president, or have a role in this country's politics, then you can be basically demonized, and you cannot be allowed in the polite society. And that's just not a sign of a democratic type society, because again, the freedom of speech and freedom of expression and freedom of religion is the bedrock of democracy. Even the books, if you are trying to pitch a book proposal, if it's something that is about socialism, let's say, if I wanted to tell the truth as an immigrant who grew up under socialism behind the Iron Curtain, I'm having trouble actually getting that book signed, because the party line, the groupthink, propagated this narrative that somehow is a good system. And people talk about the European countries, uh, Denmark, Norway. People think that those are socialist countries. They're not. They're a capitalist country. Capitalism is the best system. It's not the perfect system, but it's the best system, because it brings prosperity, and socialism brings equal poverty for all. Let's unpack that. Why socialism only brings poverty? Because when you start taking the fruits of labor from people, they stop producing, they stop innovating, right? If you put really stringent, draconian tax burden on businesses and on individuals, if you will, if you take away the majority of what they produce, they stop producing, they stop innovating. Look at what our companies have produced under capitalism. What's really amazing is that the United States has these industries that beat any other industries in the world. Let's say the pharmaceuticals, the type of medicine that is produced in the United States, and the medical research. We've practically cured cancer, right? Cancer is no longer a terminal illness. It can be, you can live with it if you get chemo, if you get, certain medications, right? HIV, AIDS, the same thing. My father, who immigrated later, to join me in the United States, had a quadruple bypass. And he's like new. He lives and he loves life in the United States. Most of his peers are dead at this time. The lifespan in Russia for males is between 66 and 68 years old. For reference, in China, it's about 70. And so this is the type of stuff that the capitalist system produces. So it's pharmaceutical, it's technology. It's no wonder that the technology has evolved primarily at first in the United States. Look at Amazon, look at Facebook, Twitter, and I know we have a love-hate relationship, including me, with social media. But the fact that you can have a product delivered within 1 or 2 days, on Amazon, or you have the Apple computer, or you have a Microsoft, you have a PC, all of these companies, people like Mark Zuckerberg, people like Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, rest in peace. The reason why they were able to create these amazing, innovative miracles is because there's freedom. When there's freedom of speech, there's freedom of thought. So eventually, if you cannot say certain things, then you cannot think certain things. And that is what the government wants to achieve ultimately. So, so what I'm worried about is the United States becoming a one-party system, because this is what it appears as though the left wants, right? With the so what's happening right now, parents are being designated as terrorists, right? Because they disagree with what their children being taught in public schools. And they're being taught, things that are, the critical race theory, which is a Marxist ideology, right? The fact, they're being taught that America is racist. Well, America is not racist. Yes, of course, there are issues. But overall, America is not a racist country. Look at it this way. If America were a racist country, people from Africa and all of these other places would not be all flooding in America. You can hear it from anyone. Take a Chinese person, take an African person from Africa. They will tell you that it is the most let's see, how do I phrase it? Unracist. I don't know if that's the word, but really, because race is just not, and racism is not just about color. It's about also it's an ideology that views one group of people as inferior to other group of people. And if you think about it, there are countries and cultures rather where a whole group of people is viewed as inferior. Like, and I'm not going to name specific countries, but there are caste, systems. Like, and even you take Europe, you take Great Britain, right? If you're born in a very particular stratum of a society, um, and you have an accent, right? That is not the accent that elites have. You're gonna have a hard time moving up the ladder, so to speak. And so it's not about that. But so another thing that worries me is government surveillance. That's a sign of a totalitarian system. And under the Biden administration, and even under the previous administration, the intelligence services and the corrupt echelons really weaponized the intelligence system against regular Americans. Carter Page, a US citizen who was risking his life collecting information from the Russians and providing it to the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, somehow got on the wrong side of the corruption contingent, I would say. And he got surveyed because the deep state, and yes, I'm not afraid to use that word, decided that President Trump somehow was in collusion with Putin, which again is a science fiction. But Carter Page was surveyed 24/7 based on 4 fraudulent applications to the secret FISA Court, for Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act clause. Even Americans like who are not part of the government and haven't done anything wrong. For example, Tucker Carlson, when he was trying to get an interview with the Russian President Vladimir Putin, there were reports that he was surveyed by the National Security Agency. So that's a big concern. That is a very Soviet tactic. The fact that right now President Biden is demonizing a whole segment of the population, calling the MAGA Republicans extremists and all sorts of names. Well, MAGA Republicans are the ones who elected President Trump, and that was, half of American population. So demonizing your political opponent, President Trump, whether you like him or not, but half of American population thought that President Trump was the right fit to lead this country. So demonizing that is very Soviet-esque. It's Putin's playbook. It seems like President Biden is choosing a page out of Putin's playbook. Putin is the one who targets his political opponents for, assassinations or locks them up in prison. And that leads again down the path towards a one-party system, a totalitarian regime. So just a couple of other things I want to say about socialism. So where it leads is this, and I know it's may sound far-fetched, right? But it's a long-term process. So I'll tell you what the free government system, the free healthcare really is. Because the system doesn't really produce enough, so that those who are in power, they have the first dibs on everything. So under Soviet socialist healthcare system, my teeth were drilled without Novocaine. Why? Because there was shortage. The dentist's daughter needed Novocaine too to have her teeth fixed. And so it's pure torture. If you don't know what torture is, having your teeth drilled without a painkiller is torture. They had to strap you in. I remember this, very well, especially as a child. It's like you can't understand this sort of thing. So they have to strap you in, your hands and your legs, so you don't hit and kick the doctor, because the dentist, because the pain is really excruciating. And things like that. We didn't have toilet paper. We didn't have sanitary products. Now, again, the government people, the members of the Communist Party who were in charge, they had everything. They were treated in different hospitals where they did have painkillers. They shopped in different stores where food was available. The rest of us, you could go to a grocery store and on a good day, you would find bread, milk, and sausage, right? That's on a good day. And so eventually, right, you can say that we have all these things right now. We have tremendous, healthcare, but it's not going to last, because there's not such a thing as a free lunch. Somebody has to pay for it, right? And eventually, as Margaret Thatcher said, you run out of other people's money. And I just wanted to give this warning to my fellow Americans to please do not be deceived by all these false narratives, because the people who advocate socialism, they've never lived under it. Let's take Bernie Sanders, and he actually benefited from capitalism. He now maligns the system that provided all these, comforts to him. And so the people who scream the loudest about how wonderful the socialist system is, they've never lived. They've never lived in Russia. They've never lived in China, Venezuela. And people who have been victims of communism, socialism, like myself, they all flood here. You can pick any immigrant in the United States from China, Russia, Venezuela, any of these places, and they will tell you that capitalism is the best, not the perfect. I didn't say perfect. There are definitely problems with that, with capitalism as well. But on balance, capitalism beats socialism, hands down. because what socialism does, it brings everyone down. It makes them equally, poor. Everybody under, yes, in the Soviet Union had a little bit, nobody had too much, except the government, of course. Nobody lived on the street because the government provided some sort of housing. They would put in a bunch of families, together. It was called a communal apartment. But again, eventually it collapsed. It collapsed because it just wasn't sustainable. And so here, yes, we have the disparity of wealth, but people who create wealth, they work super hard. That wealth didn't just, land on their lap. I'm certain that as much as I do not like, particularly Mark Zuckerberg, he works very hard. Jeff Bezos worked very hard. Any of the people who own businesses, including small businesses, they work super hard. And it is the politicians like Nancy Pelosi, who has never created anything herself, or Chuck Schumer, or Adam Schiff, Nancy Pelosi. Again, remember the whole ice cream business. She opened her refrigerator and she had $25 a pop ice cream, and she wants to lock up the rest of us, and she wants to give us people like that just want to give uh people a handout, some minimal wage or minimum, allotment or universal income. But that means that you cannot progress, you cannot improve your lifestyle, you cannot invent something. They just want you to wait for the government's handout, because they believe that the government is in charge of your destiny, and the government is the only one who can help you out. Well, the truth is, you are in charge of your own destiny. And you know what? My parents, they knew that. They knew that, and even though they lived in the Soviet Union, but they knew capitalism is the best system. They raised me to love America and to eventually go to this country, because they thought that I could be in charge of my own destiny. And they were right, because when you use your skills and talents and everything that God gave you, you can make it happen. You can create the life that you want for yourself. And I've had an amazing life here in America. I served as an intelligence officer. After September 11th, I wanted to commit myself to help the national security of my adopted homeland. Before that, I had a excellent career in the international business and the information technology industry, and I highly, highly support the capitalist system. And we need to really be very careful which type of leaders we support. Those who believe that you as an individual can be in charge of your own destiny, and you're smart enough, you're talented enough, and you're hardworking enough. Or those leaders who believe that you are incapable and you just need, a handout from the government, and you can just, lie around on the couch, and you don't need to go to work, and they'll just give you the minimum universal income, and you can get free health care where your teeth will be drilled without Novocaine. So that's basically what it boils down to. So again, check out the editorials that I put on the website that were published, talking about the evils of socialism, and about my concern that the certain individuals on the left are trying to turn USA into USSR 2.0. So this was Rebekah Koffler with Censored But Not Silenced. If you like my podcast, please subscribe. Give me a shout on social media. My handle is at Rebekah0132. Rebekah is spelled Rebekah 0132. I'm on Getter, I'm on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Check out my analysis. I write regularly for the New York Post, the Wall Street Journal, Fox News, Newsweek, and thank you. I hope to catch you later again on my podcast. Take care.